Welcome everybody back to the Nuggets of Gold podcast and YouTube channel. So for today's video, I am going to be previewing and giving my predictions for this Rams 49ers Monday Night Football game. I haven't posted a couple videos recently, missed a couple days, had some family in town, so I'll get back on it. We'll have a reaction, recap video on Monday night after the game ends for this football game, but let's get into the matchups. First, I'm going to talk about the 49ers offense against the Rams defense because I do think there are some positive things that can go on there. Then I will get into the 49ers defense against the Rams offense. Going to be a little bit more negative on that side. And then overall, get into what I think this game is going to look like, what I think is likely to happen in this game, and finally, I'll get into some score predictions as well. But for the 49ers offense, I think they have a couple areas where I think they'll be able to pick apart the Rams. A lot of times we've seen this, like, Kyle's been so good against McVay, has such a great record, and the Rams have really struggled to stop the Niners run game. I expect that to be maybe not to the same extent it has been in past seasons, but I do think that we'll see some of that in this game. So, for example, like, the Rams linebackers aren't too great. The Niners do have Trent Williams, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk paving the way for Elijah Mitchell, who is questionable, but he played last week with the same injury, so I expect that he'll be back in there. If they're going to win this game, they're going to really need to control the clock and win that way. Last week, we saw two early fumbles that I think really just took the Niners out of the football game, because what we've learned is that the Niners defense isn't very good. For them to win football games, they have to play almost perfectly. Against the Bears, for instance, I don't know if they punted, but they scored, like, I forget how many points they scored in a row. Like, they had such a great offensive day, like 450 plus yards, I believe, in that game. They're going to have an offensive performance like that. Now, luckily for this game, I think there's a chance they do that. However, the problem is with this Rams football team, and I don't think Von Miller's going to play, so I think that's a huge factor. Even if they have weak safeties, weak linebackers, the defensive line outside Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald isn't anything super spectacular. Now, when Von comes, that's going to look a lot different. But it's weird because even when that happens, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey make plays to win the game. They are those level of players where sometimes it just doesn't matter. I would expect Jalen Ramsey to have an interception in this game. It feels like he does that very often against Jimmy Garoppolo because, I mean, anybody that's been a Niners fan for a while has seen it. Jimmy will just stare down targets, and it's pretty obvious where he's going to be going with the football. So I expect Jalen to potentially have a pick or have a pretty good game in this one, especially with Deebo Samuel banged up. But if they're going to win this game, it's not going to be about the passing offense. It's going to be able that they're able to just suffocate the Rams with their running game. There's a lot of pressure on the guys up front in this one. Jaylen Moore will be starting his first game at right tackle. He did start at left tackle earlier this year. Looked pretty good in that game, but we're going to see, how does he compete? I expect that Aaron Donald will be moved to his side and will be going against him and Brunskill. That is a very, very scary matchup for the 49ers, and that could lead to a ton of problems. That could lead to Donald taking over this game. So for Jaylen Moore, you got a lot on your plate in this one. So hopefully he steps up to the plate. I think that he could potentially be a guy that takes over that right tackle spot for Mike McGlinchey. But we're going to see if that's the case. Huge test today. And he might be the right tackle for the rest of the year. So, way to start it out against Aaron Donald. So that's going to be, he really has his work cut out for them. Defensively for the 49ers, you guys have seen the injury report. It feels like almost every single corner is hurt. Emmanuel Mosley, Josh Norman, Dre Kirkpatrick, Jimmy Ward might be coming back. That's huge. Tavon Wilson is now hurt. So there are so many guys that are banged up. I think it's unlikely that we're going to see Dre Kirkpatrick. I think it's likely that Jimmy Ward's back in the lineup. So the safeties will be Talanoa Hufanga, Jimmy Ward. I think that the corners are going to be Josh Norman and Emmanuel Mosley with K'Wan Williams in the slot. And then finally, hopefully, Deommodore Lenoir is active in the first guy off the bench. If I had to say it just based on how they've played in the games, obviously I'm not there watching that practice, I would start Deommodore Lenoir and Emmanuel Mosley. I think that's the best the best combination for outside for the Niners. And then I'd have K'Wan Williams in the nickel. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. I would guess that Josh Norman does start, but I hope that Deommodore Lenoir at least pushes Dre Kirkpatrick down the depth chart, because when he's been on the field, he has been really, really bad. One thing to note, we are going to be seeing a Josh Norman versus Otto Beckham Jr. Matchup again. Now, a lot different from that. I think it was 2015 when the Panthers had a big game against the Giants. One of honestly one of my favorite football games I've watched in my life. I thought that was an amazing game, just a really fun matchup. Doesn't really have the magnitude that it did back then, but it is funny that that's going to be a potential matchup this weekend. I think that this passing offense for the Rams is going to be really hard for the Niners to stop. Along with that, Eric Armstead's banged up. If the Niners are going to win this game, it hasn't been about Nick Bosa this year because not like he hasn't played well. He's played great. He leads the team with 17 quarterback hits. The next guy on that list is Arden Key with 4. 4. Also, Nick Bosa is the most double-teamed edge player in the NFL. So it's pretty tough to expect this 49ers defensive line to go out there and play really well with the combination that has been this defensive line that hasn't been quite as good as people thought it was going to be. And also the secondary has just been awful. I think a lot of that does fall on D'Amico Ryan's shoulders. I don't think he has called very good games. And I think especially on third down, it's so clear what the Niners are trying to do. Other teams have been able to pick up their blitzes really well. Any of the stunts, anything they're really doing, for the most part, other teams' offensive lines have been able to handle everybody except for Nick Bosa. So you're going to need to see Jordan Willis potentially have a big game. He's finally back. You're going to need someone on the interior, maybe DJ Jones. You're going to need guys to really step up and play a lot better than they have in the past weeks and generate some more pressure. Also, this secondary has its work cut out for them. Cooper Kupp is the best receiver statistically in the NFL right now. And I don't know if there's a better quarterback at sitting in the pocket and delivering the ball deep downfield, which is a perfect recipe to beat this Niners defense. That has been their biggest struggle. The Eagles, that's what they were trying to do all game. The Eagles are a team that they don't do that well. That's not Jalen Hurts' strengths. Matt Stafford is one of the few quarterbacks that all he's trying to do is push the ball deep downfield. I shouldn't say all he's trying to do, but that's his primary goal when he goes out there. He is one of the few guys that sits in the pocket and just delivers the ball deep downfield. So Niners defense has really struggled against that. I think that is going to lead to a potential nightmare game for the Niners. And I think it's really hard for them to be able, even if they get a lead early, to hang on to it just because that's been the case. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I think any Rams fans watching, I think I know a lot of Rams fans that are kind of skeptical about playing the Niners just because of the recent success that the 49ers have had against them. But I think it's a lot different when you have Matthew Stafford back there instead of Jared Goff. And I think being a 49ers fan, I think a lot of the Niners fans are kind of naive on that. Now, I think we've seen the secondary this year and seen how bad it looks, so I think people have kind of changed up. But going into the year, I think a lot of people thought that the Niners were going to be able to, I don't know, that was going to look the same like it has in past seasons against the Rams, and I don't think that was ever going to be the case. I think for predictions-wise, I think the Rams are going to really take care of the 49ers. I actually think this is going to be a huge wake-up call for like the entire – not that last week wasn't. Last week definitely was. But I think this week we're going to see the Niners lose by double-digit points, and I really do think this is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo's last game. Next week, the Niners play the Jaguars. I think that's a perfect game to put Trey Lance in there and say, hey, go win us a game. I think that's going to happen. I think this is going to be the last week that we see Jimmy Garoppolo starting for the 49ers. For score predictions, I'll say it's going to be 31-20. I think that's a pretty accurate score. We'll see how it turns out. Of course, I hope I'm wrong. I want to see the Niners go out there and win, but I do think this is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo's last game. I think he's going to throw a couple picks. I think one of those picks will be to Jaylen, and I think ultimately this is going to be the end of it. If the Niners are to win, I think that you're going to need to see them have a very interesting game plan. I think you're going to need to see them absolutely dominate in the run game. In terms of the secondary, their guys have to step up. They have to generate more pressure. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough because even if you stop the Rams' run game, there's still a massive, massive weakness for your defense going up against this offense that it seems like they're built to beat defenses that can be exploited like downfield that can't generate a lot of pressure. And that's been the Niners. That's been their Achilles heel this year on defense. So I think it's a really tough game for them to go out there and win. But with all that said, hopefully the 49ers are able to do it. Hopefully I'm wrong on this one, but let me know what you guys think. Any Rams fans listening, how do you guys feel about your season so far? What do you think about this 49ers-Rams matchup? And we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully it's a good Monday Night Football game, but I don't think it's going to be, unfortunately. But thank you all for listening, and I'll be back talking 49ers football soon.